out Apple Schoolwork. It's very similar to Google Classroom, but it works a little bit better with those Apple native apps. Apple Schoolwork is an iPad app that is not accessible with your MacBook. You can create and share assignments to students through it. When you create an assignment, you can choose to have it be a collaborative assignment with you and just the student. You can have it be collaborative with all of the students on one document, or you can set it as view only so that only you can edit it, but each student has their own copy to view. The app is organized by due dates, so keep that in mind because if you don't set a due date initially, it'll move it to the bottom of the screen. You can also assign quizzes or different assessments and use the helpful in-app analytics to quickly identify where students excelled and where they struggled. In our district, our classes are automatically preloaded into Apple Classroom and Apple Schoolwork through Skyward. Unfortunately, sometimes that means the names can be confusing. For example, at the high school, if you have multiple sections of a class, they are named as like Algebra 1 and then a weird code like 02F or 03S that really there's no way to determine what it means unless you go into the class and look at the roster. So it might be beneficial to take some time to edit the names of your classes and add in the semester, maybe the hour that it is, and for sure add the school year. To do this, you open Schoolwork on your iPad. You long press on the class name, so you can see my names over on the left-hand side of my iPad screen there, and you can see like the top advisory class, Advisory 09S, or you can see further down there's Algebra 1 01F, Algebra 1 02F. Those are all classes I hadn't renamed yet. So if you open a class, you check your roster, you identify which hour, which semester this is. You can long press on it and then tap on Edit Class. One thing I do want to note here, if you long press on it and there's an option to delete that class, that means that class is not active in Skyward anymore. Go ahead and delete it, and that will remove it also from your Apple Classroom, and it won't clutter that screen as much. After you tap on Edit Class, then you can change the name. And so you could add the semester, the hour it is, and the school year. You can even change the color and the icon that will appear both on your screen and on the students. So as a math teacher, I like to use the calculator, and I like to have my subjects be different colors. That way I can easily find my Algebra 1s and my Algebra 2s. Anything you change on Apple Schoolwork will sync over to Apple Classroom. The first thing that you can use Apple Schoolwork for is for assignments. To add an assignment, you can tap on Assignments, and there's a plus sign in the top right corner. You can also tap on the plus sign by Assignments on the left-hand side, or if you open a class, there's a plus sign in the top right corner. There's lots of spaces to do this. But anywhere you see a plus sign, that's where you would add an assignment. When you add an assignment, you add your title. The assign to is where you can assign it to a whole class, or you can open a class and just assign it to some students in that class. You cannot assign it to multiple classes at once. So if I want to assign something to all of my Algebra 1s, I would need to assign it to one of my Algebra 1s first, finish setting up the assignment, go ahead and publish it, but then I can make copies for the other classes. You can add a due date. Remember that that's how all of the assignments are organized on your end and on the student's end. You can set a time to deliver it, so you can send it to them immediately. If you're doing sub-plans, you can schedule it to deliver on a certain day or a certain time. And then the add activities, that's where you get a variety of options. You can add an app activity. You can upload a file for them. Remember, that's where you can collaborate with them. You can have all the students collaborate on one file, or you can set it to view only. You can add a photo or take a photo. You can scan a document. So maybe you have worksheets from your curriculum and you want to do them digitally. You can scan them there. You can add a link to a web page, or that's how I have them work on a collaborative freeform together, is I put the link in there as a web page. The hand-in request is it provides a spot for them to upload any file. And then the exit ticket is a useful tool to build a check-in, and it provides some in-app analytics as well there. With exit tickets, you can add a variety of questions from multiple choice to a slider to open response and a rating. They have some preloaded questions, or you can make your own. You can favorite questions. So if you have a check-in that you want to do at the end of every chapter and it's very similar, you could favorite those questions. After you do an exit ticket, when they start coming back, Schoolwork will do some in-app analytics. For example, on open response, it'll make a word cloud. On multiple choice, you can easily see who answered which questions on the multiple choice. One thing with assignments, if you choose to return an assignment for a student, that will lock it in and they cannot make edits. If you want a student to be able to make edits, you would tap the 3 dots by their assignment and ask them to try it again. And that will give them an alert saying, hey, you need to go back and fix some things. You can mark up on their assignments since it's collaborative. So let's say you had scanned a document for them. You could use your Apple Pen, or you could add text boxes and add your own notes and say, hey, you need to correct this, you need to do this. And they could go back. If you ask them to try it again, they could go in and make those edits. You can also use the assessment tools on Apple Schoolwork. When you set up an assessment, it will automatically make it a PDF if it's not a PDF. So you can either import a file. So if you have a Pages document, it will convert it to PDF automatically. I will say sometimes it messes with the formatting. So I find it's easier to have my PDFs already exported just to make sure and then set up my assessment. You can also, again, scan a document. So if you have quizzes already printed out and you want to do it digitally instead, you can just take a picture of it but with this scan option. When you set up an assessment, you'll have the options to make it open or closed book. Closed book will lock their iPad into that assessment until they submit it. You can also set a timer on this. When you are going through and reviewing the student's work, grading it is a breeze. You just tap to add a check mark, and that means they got a correct point. You double tap to add an X, which is an incorrect point. I would recommend add the points in the same area. So that's why I like to give a question or an answer area for all of the questions, because you will set up an answer area for the in-app analytics. You can also grade one student's, then go back and set up the question areas, and then any other students that you grade, you'll see those question areas, so you'll know where you need to tap. Let's say I'm grading and I accidentally put a check mark where it should have been wrong. I can just tap on that check mark and I can change it to incorrect. I can remove it, or you can change it to a bonus point. You also don't have to make each question only 1 point. So there have been times I've done quizzes where each question is worth 2 points. So I just have to remember to either tap twice to give them the full points, or add a check mark and an X to give them half points, and so on and so forth. After you've reviewed at least one assessment, you can tap on Analytics, and it will have you set up the question areas. Once they're set, they'll be the same for all students. So you have your choice of, do you set this after you've reviewed one quiz or after you've reviewed all of them? If you set it after you've reviewed all of them, it will give you a notice if you need to go and edit someone's because you tapped outside the question areas. Pro tip, set up your quiz. If you need this for multiple hours, set it up for one class, review at least one student in that class, and set up the question areas before you make a copy of the assessment for a different class, because that will copy over the question areas and you won't have to do it again. So as you can see here, I can quickly see that I've gotten all 23 out of 23 quizzes turned in There was an average score of 55%, so I probably need to go through and see which question was the lowest, and it tells me that it was question 2. So I can go back and quickly look at what do I need to reteach to this class. I can assign point values to each question. Since I had all of my questions at 1 point each, I didn't assign the point values, but you could set question 1 to 1 point. You could set question 2 to 3, whatever you want to do. And it will tell you then it would be half a point out of 1, 0.8 points out of 3, or however many you set it to. You can view class and student progress. So if I open up a class, so you can see I have my Algebra 1 for spring of 2025 open. I can see the assignments I've posted at the top. So I see that I have 4 of these books turned in that I need to review. I can quickly see that this class really struggled and only got 28% of their assignments done last week. I can see the average time spent. Now, the average time spent is only if you do a collaborative assignment. So these assignments were things they worked on their own, and I only had a hand-in request. And so that's why there's not a whole lot of time in the Schoolwork app. And then the frequency will show you which assignment did you ask them to try again the most often. If I open a student's page, so I go to my class roster, I click on a student's name, I can see that this student turned in 6 out of the 7 assignments. And so this would be a great, data point for emailing parents or emailing the student like, hey, you only have 1 out of the 7 assignments turned in on schoolwork. We need to get that done. I can also quickly see how many or what percentage of assignments were turned in on time. And then I can follow their performance if I'm using the exit tickets or the assessment pieces. You can also scroll through their assignments and you can quickly see which one they haven't turned in. And that is it for Apple Schoolwork. If you have any questions or need some clarifications, please email an IT member and set up time to go over it more. There are also links here to see the Apple Schoolwork user guide, the Apple Education Center, and of course, our YouTube channel.